Now, to me, the most important single KPI metric for a practice is conversion percentage. So we're going to go into conversion percentage. We're going to understand, how our different providers are doing. We're going to compare maybe, the top three there to our top three in revenue and understand, what's driving everything. To lay this out, maybe in the most basic way I can. So this practice has about 2,000 opportunities a year. Let's forget this data because I'm going to use simple math. If we have a conversion percentage of 50%, that means we're helping 1,000 patients. That's wonderful, right? We're changing their lives. If our ASP is $2,500, that turns into $2.5 million. A binaural rate of 1.9 turns it into $4.75 million. Now, if we change that fictitious 50% conversion rate to 60%, that seems like a lot. And it is, quite frankly, it's a 20% increase, but it's also something that we can achieve over time. Now, if we have a 60% conversion rate, we've now helped 1,200 patients. That's amazing. 200 more patients that are walking out of our door that are happy and having their lives changed. If we keep the same ASP and the same binaural rate, our sales are now at $5.7 million. So we've increased our sales $1 million without seeing an additional patient, without spending one more dollar on marketing, without making one more phone call to a patient, just by improving, our conversion rate. And so to me, that's where we've spent a lot of our time in our practice and really understanding our providers' behaviors in that hearing aid evaluation. Traditionally, what I've seen is a lot of providers like to stick to the status quo, like what they're comfortable with, right? They went through school, they probably had a mentor, they worked at their first practice, and they got into a habit of doing hearing aid evaluations, a typical way. So what we decided to was observe their behavior and listen to their hearing aid evaluations. In our practice, we found three different ways that really there could be improvement. One was the questions they were asking patients, right? Or if they were even asking questions. But more importantly, what second level or third level questions were they asking to find out the impact? So you may say, tell me three situations where you struggle to hear. And the patient will say there's three situations: crowded restaurant, at church, and at a concert, something like that. What we weren't doing is saying, okay, how does that impact you? And what is the doing with your life and your loved ones and your relationships with those people? And once you start finding out that information, now we can actually start having better, deeper conversations with them. We looked at that. We looked at how we're actually presenting solutions and how we're discussing price. And so once we had a baseline of how can we improve, now we work with them individually to say, okay, let's work on your questioning. Let's do some role play. Let's do some practicing. And audiologists typically do not like role plays. We have found that out so often this past year. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. I always say it's like a sports team, right? If you're going out to play a game Sunday afternoon and you don't practice at all that week, you're not going to perform nearly as well as if you practice each day. You look at film, you understand what you're doing wrong, what you can do better, and then you practice to try to get better. So to me, there's no better metric to try to focus on to improve the conversion rate.